Welcome to the Homeschool Counseling Network's Meet the Preferred Provider series, where we highlight professionals from our preferred provider directory. I'm Kimberly Bennett, a licensed professional counselor of over 20 years, and I've been a homeschool mom for the past 7 years. I'm also the founder and the CEO of the Homeschool Counseling Network. We're a 501c3 nonprofit supporting homeschooling families. One of the free resources we have at our website is our preferred provider directory. This is where we feature allied health, mental health, coaching, and consulting professionals who have been trained in the world of homeschooling and who are committed to serving the homeschooling community well. To learn more about our work, our training, and how to access support, visit our website at homeschoolcounselingnetwork.com. Today, I have with me HCN preferred provider Amanda Schenkenberger. Amanda is a second generation homeschooler, a published author, a podcaster, and a coach who helps overwhelmed homeschool moms calm the chaos and confidently homeschool. Through her work at Confident Homeschool Moms, she blends brain-based strategies with heart-centered support to help moms move from self-doubt to self-confidence so the whole family can thrive without homeschool mom burnout. Amanda has been featured in the Tuttle Twins series, the Old Schoolhouse Magazine, the Homeschool Mom Summer Summit, Fox News, and more. Welcome, Amanda.
Hi, thanks for having me, Kimberly. I'm very excited to share with what I have to offer homeschool families.
Well, we are very excited to have you here with us, and we're also very proud to have you in our directory. You know firsthand as a former homeschooled student, and now you're doing that with your four children. So, Amanda, tell us a little bit about your journey. What led you into this field?
Yeah, so my journey started, as a homeschool kiddo. I was homeschooled until high school, and I almost immediately knew right away I was not going to send my kids to public school. I had a very play based unschooling background. And then when I entered high school, I immediately did very well, outperforming most of my peers. And I was like, what have these kids been doing all day? They're stuck to a desk and I was out climbing trees. I think I know a better way to learn. So when I was a teenager, I decided I was going to homeschool my future kids. But you would think that had saved me from a lot of the trouble first generation homeschool moms encounter, but it didn't. I like to learn things the hard way. And so I had all the same struggles that most homeschool moms have as far as like, oh, let's do all the curriculum in kindergarten and we need to cover 6 to 10 subjects and we've got to do 6 hour homeschool days. And when I went to homeschool my oldest, I had 2 babies at the time. And so, man, I was overwhelmed. It was a lot. And so what really brings me to how I help homeschooling moms and families today is that journey of what it was like to be completely overwhelmed to the point of living in survival mode, dealing with negative self-talk, and really doubting myself and my capabilities, not just to be a home educator, but to be a good mother. And so that's where I like to step in and help moms because that good mom is inside of you already. Sometimes she's just a little buried under maybe anxiety and overwhelm. So I like to bring her to the surface. So that's really my personal story is what brings me here today.
Think that is a story that so many moms can relate to, regardless if you've been through it before. You've just shared that your experience as the homeschooling mom, as opposed to the homeschooled student, was vastly different. And that just a lot of that comes with life changes too. Once your perspective changes and you are now the parent instead of the child. And I was one of those moms right there too, buried underneath overwhelm and frustration, but also a lot of laundry. So it's just balancing all of those different aspects of it. And I think that's where you come in with your homeschooling, your Homeschool Moms Confidently membership that you have. And we'll talk more about that a little bit later on. When we talk about one of the big things I found that if it's homeschooling families who are starting new or if they're transitioning from public education into homeschool, it takes a certain bit of mindset shift. It's a completely different, and in our community, we call it deschooling quite a bit. But what is some of that mindset shift and personal growth that you would think if you are a professional moving from a public education environment, or if you're wanting to even launch a business as an entrepreneur, it's a completely different ballgame when you're shifting from employee to entrepreneur. And you work with your clients as a coach on mindset shifts quite a bit. So what would you say are some of the mindset shifts that are essential to success as an entrepreneur?
Yes. So I had in my college years decided, oh, I'll never own a business. And I opted to take coding instead, which actually served me well building my website. So I'm very thankful for that. But I never was really exposed to like, here's how you make a business and trying to figure out how to become an entrepreneur. I'm actually thankful I wasn't put in the business box first because there would be a lot of mindset I'd have to undo. Now, it was, it's like the Wild West. You're trying to figure things out, figure yourself out. I actually think entrepreneurialism really mimics motherhood in a lot of ways and homeschooling. But I think for us to shift our perspective. Okay, I'm an employee. Now I'm going to run a business. One of the biggest things we have to realize, especially if this is close to our hearts, right? As a provider, there's a certain element like we're not supposed to carry our clients with us throughout the day, but it's also tender towards your heart and like you really care about these people. And when you lean into a community like the homeschooling community, man, we're like fierce about the people who are for us and we like love them dearly. And so for me, it's knowing that I'm probably going to live and breathe this business, this entrepreneurial ship. I'm living and breathing on it. Like I'm out in the sea and I am on a ship and we're not like nothing's changing. And so the mindset from, okay, I can clock in and clock out, or I'll see that client, I'll see that client tomorrow. Everything will be okay. I gave this information to the parents. It's different. You carry yourself differently. You're so deeply invested as an entrepreneur in the growth of the business and the success of your clients. There's no clock in and clock out. And that is something that is challenging and also beautiful for compelling you towards your vision and carrying you when you get tired and unmotivated and like, I'm sick of hitting my head against the wall. It is something you can tap into to intrinsically motivate yourself because there's that family out there, they need you. And okay, yep, I'm going to get up and I'm going to serve them. Maybe they don't even know my name yet, but I'm going to get up and I'm going to serve them and they will come as I keep putting myself out there.
I hate to go back to the old Kevin Costner adage, if you build it, they will come. But it's true. It's true. It's almost like that law of attraction where if you get out there and you promote yourself authentically and you are genuine, you will attract the clients that you're looking for. On the other side of that coin, if you are out there to just hang out your shingle and expand your practice, which I know businesses have to have clients to grow, but if you are not authentic, the homeschool community can spot you at 20 paces and they will see straight through that like saran wrap, and you will not build your client, nor will you affect any change. And that's what we're really here for, is measurable impact and measurable outcome. That's what we're really here for. Speaking about that, and you talked about a little bit, you touched on it, that delicate balance of, because we're both homeschool moms, we both have businesses. I'm a nonprofit, you have your own practice, but it's one of those that boundaries are so hard. And it is so hard for us to learn how to do that. Yes, we do get up. Yes, we do. We are more vested because this is our community that we're working with. We are homeschool parents. How do you maintain healthy boundaries with your clients and with your business versus your home?
That's a really good question. And I have been very fortunate to have clients who are like, I get it, you're a homeschool mom. There's been a couple who like have been on the side of like really wanting to be a sponge and soak up all my time. But for the most part, the boundaries have come easily because they're like, can we meet this week? I'm like, of course we can. Like we're supposed to meet weekly, not just in the contract, but like that's what we've talked about. And so the moms that I have had the privilege of working with most of the time, they're very honoring of boundaries. Like, oh, I feel bad taking your time. I'm like, you you pay me to do this. Like, please come take my time. And so my experience with my clients in my practice has been overwhelmingly easy in that regard because they get it. They're living it, and most of them are working moms too, so they get the balance and how it can be challenging. So it's been relatively easy in that sense because I have such great clients.
Well, that's a testimony to the client population that you serve. I would say also what I've observed just over the time that I've known you and over the time that you've been in our network at HCN is you also set that expectation up front to begin with. That's part of what we call in the industry the client onboarding process. So would you agree that it's definitely important that you do have to set that expectation? And I agree. And when I was in private practice as a therapist, you do have clients from time to time, whether they do it unintentionally or intentionally. Some, by the time they reach out for help, they're just so overwhelmed and they're desperate for that comfort. They're desperate for that connection. They're desperate for that assistance. That's why they found you to begin with. So they don't necessarily mean to violate those boundaries. It just takes kind of gently setting that expectation at the beginning and then reinforcing that expectation. I think all of us, when we're in a little bit of a state of panic, we kind of revert back to the SOS mode, please help me. So, how do you, if you have found that if a boundary has been tested or even crossed, how do you gently put that boundary back in place with a client?
That's a really good question because this is something I struggle with as a communicator. I am very like straight to the point, like here's, facts. Like in a lot of ways, I'm like, man, I'm like a dude when I talk. I just like here's the facts, and it's can be very unemotional. But and then when I approach it in my natural way, I'm like, oh, this isn't gonna be received well. And I care about her heart. And so I actually use ChatGPT to help me. I say, here are the facts. Like, I want to be tender with this mom's heart. Give me some ideas of how to phrase this so that it comes across in a loving, respectful way. And I truly believe like holding people high is very important. And also knowing, being able to gauge how high they can reach to that standard. And so I have to chat GPT it because I'm such a straight shooter. So that's like one of my little behind the scenes things is I need help with that.
I think we all need help with that from time to time. And I think you came up with a pretty good point there to emphasize that AI is a tool that we can use to assist us. It does not replace us. You're not sending an automated response from ChatGPT to your client. You would never do that. But you have a lot of self-awareness there, which is important as a provider, which says, oh, okay, this may not be my strength. I have many that are not my strengths as well. So this is before AI came on. I'm a little bit older. But that is where you still have your community. You also probably have a community of other coaches that you can reach out to as mentors, if you will, and go, hey, we call it consultation in the mental health community, where we have peer consultation. We kind of outgrow, if you're a licensed professional, you do outgrow the level of supervision once you're fully licensed, but no one ever outgrows mentoring or the need for peer consults. And so that's one thing I think that having a strong community like we have at HCN or like you have I'm sure you have other coaching communities as well, where you can reach out and kind of go, okay, I've got this situation. Here's where I need to learn and grow. I think the bigger takeaway and the bigger message is for professionals who are wanting to become providers in this community is you're never going to know it all, and that's okay. You surround yourself with people who know more than you do. You stick firm to your ethics, and you have a lot of self-awareness, which is what you just did, which is like, okay, this is what I know about me. Here's how I need to put this softer, because you still said what you needed to say to your client. You just know that it needs to be, this person's in a situation where they're going to need it to be put a little bit more gentle, direct and firm, but gentle. And you can have both. You can have both.
I would I would love to piggyback on that fine tune. What you said was something about like knowing yourself well and being an entrepreneur. And I said this before, so much of it mirrors being a homeschool mom. And so if you are somebody coming from maybe you're a public school, you helped at public school and now you're trying to move into the private sector, or you've been a therapist and you want to specifically work with homeschool parents and you are beginning this journey of entrepreneurship and you're like, oh, I don't know everything. There's so much to learn. Oh, where can I reach out for this information? That's exactly how a homeschool mom feels. Different subject. And so I really, as a provider, I really want to encourage you to embody that when you are meeting with parents who are struggling. Like, think about, I'm struggling to learn all these things. I don't have all the answers. That's exactly how this parent is feeling. And I think, at least for me, when I can do that well, I just show up so much better for my client when I am more aware of where they're standing at from their shoes.
Agreed. And that is what will endear you to your client because it's approaching it from a stance of humility. I think that's where I've talked about this with other providers in interviews as well, but I think that's where a lot of times if you're new to serving the homeschool community, you might be incredibly excited. You're incredibly excited about making this pivot and switching to serve this community because you see the opportunity and the opportunity is there. With the caveat, I think this is where providers get it wrong when they want to come in and serve our community, but they come in from a position of authority without remembering that as homeschoolers, as homeschool parents, we have decided and chosen, we didn't come at this decision easily, but we have decided and chosen to take on, to assume the helm, if you will, of our child's education. We know what we're taking on. And in doing so, even if there are times when we need the support and we're going to reach out and we want that support, you're not coming in to pilot our plane. You might be coming in as a co-pilot. You might be coming in as air traffic control to just kind of give us guidelines. But you have to respect the parents' autonomy and their agency that these are their kids. This is their homeschool. This is their family. And so you have to approach it from that aspect of humility. You've got to meet the client where they are. You have to listen first, recommend, and understand, then recommend.
Yeah, I will just say, as a homeschool mom, like, I am a fierce mama bear. And I also am naturally a challenger, just naturally. On Enneagram, I am an 8. Like, I used to think there was something wrong with me, but I am an 8 to my core. And so I personally would just, again, shoot it to you straight if I felt like you were coming in with that authority piece instead of coming alongside me. But other moms, most of my clients would probably not. They would probably just back off and you wouldn't hear from them again. But I would be like, no, that's not going to fix my kid. Sorry. So there's that.
No, I agree. I'm pretty much the same way. I'm like, "Mm, no, I fired pediatricians for less." But that's where it's different. I'm very much a mama bear there too. But I think the bigger takeaway is also that it is about humility, that you're here to restore and repair and help heal and help build community, not tear it down and not isolate and not ostracize. That's really not what we're trying to do. That's not what we're trying to do, especially not if you're part of HCN. That's not what we're about at all. But Amanda does that. She's been with us since the beginning. Well, if we could switch gears now and talk about marketing and client attraction, this is one thing when it gets to the nuts and bolts of business. If this is your background and this is what you're comfortable with, and this is what you actually coach other people to help them do as well. So you're very comfortable with this. How would you say that? How did you first come about with finding paying clients in your coaching business? How did that come about?
Yeah. So, what I would like to say to anybody who is brand new to this entrepreneurship thing and pivoting into supporting the homeschool community is, one, you are going to need a list of homeschoolers. You're going to need to begin to build an email list. And the way I did this was through hosting a summit, which was basically having experts come in that were homeschool experts. Some of them were mental health practitioners or therapists. My first summit was called Anxiety Free Homeschooling. So I had that theme about it. And so my goal was bringing experts in to attract somebody who might be dealing with anxiety in homeschooling. And so you've got to figure out, and a summit is, if you're not tech savvy and you don't have a lot of time to pour into this, let's say you've got like 4 hours a week, like that's not going to cut it for a summit. You're going to need, 10 plus hours a week to really begin to organize this. And it's like a whole branch of your business, but you're going to need something to attract these clients you want to work with. Now, again, I chose anxiety free homeschooling. And that could have been a summit. That could be a lead magnet. The point is you've got to be able to have something that will bring homeschool families in that you can then begin to nurture and love on. And share some knowledge, whatever your specific field is. And so the way I did it was through a summit. And then once the summit was complete, I had everybody's email. Through those emails, I would send them offers and more information about, like, here's how we can homeschool anxiety free. And then eventually I had an offer to work privately with me. And I got one private paying client from my first summit, which was awesome. And from there, I had to develop a lot of confidence. Like, I had done coaching, my coaching certificate, but up until that point, I hadn't done a lot of one on one. So that whole phase for me was really developing my confidence and my strategies. But marketing wise, you have to have something that a homeschool family is going to need, that will pull them in and they will exchange information, whether it's their phone number or their email address, for what you're offering. That is really the first place you've got to start.
Thank you for sharing that. That is a huge opportunity to let us know what it takes. You're offering something of value to the homeschool community first, but that's also you're going to well, your book is literally called Overwhelmed, so that immediately ties in to your niche. And this is all grist for the mill, but it all makes sense once you tie it in together. Her background and her specialty is as working as in her book that she wrote about, Overwhelmed. It all ties into the one thing that we actually do see a lot in the homeschool community among either first-time homeschoolers or new homeschoolers. And those are similar categories, but different. It can be parents that are starting from elementary, moving forward, or parents that have had to pull their children home out of public education. Either way, anytime we start something new, even if we're excited about it and we want it, anxiety kind of goes hand in hand with it. So we want someone to actually give us those steps to help us and kind of also comfort, calm our fears a little bit. And then also remind us that, hey, it's okay. If anytime you start something new, there's going to be a little bit of anxiety that goes along with it, but it helps us manage that. But I love how you tied all of that in together with how, okay, this is what this looks like. This is the bigger picture. What would you say have been the most effective marketing approaches that you have used, like even for, say, your summit or even advertising your coaching service?
Yes. So, one of the things that I think is really important when we're getting into marketing is naming the pain, right? So, anxiety, for example, at the Homeschooling Summit, anxiety was the pain, but then also painting the picture of what it can look like. So, the pain and the dream, right? And then you become that bridge between the pain and the dream. So, anxiety free homeschooling. It was such a great title. Like, honestly, like, that was like directly from the Lord. I'm not that clever, but you want to paint the pain and you want to paint the dream, and then you become the bridge in between. And every single one of you listening, you have a different bridge to play than I do. And so wherever your field is, and there, as you get into homeschooling and as you begin to work with clients, you might figure out, oh, I actually really love helping families that have teens that are like their kids are in high school. That's my niche. Like, so many people are like, oh, homeschooling is such a great niche. You're so clear in your client. I'm like, you know how deep it goes? Like, it goes real deep. And so, like, I'm about homeschool moms, right? But then there's classical educators, there's unschoolers, there's, the eclectic. There are so many different branches. And so I think it's really important that as you begin working with the homeschooling community, you get clear on who exactly you want to help. And the more niche you can be, that's even better, because that makes, when those people come to you, they say, oh, I need to work with her. She can help me with, my teen who is struggling with ADHD and can't, like, use a planner. Like, that's what they can help with. Yeah, I'm going to work with her. So you will maybe necessarily know that right up front. But as you dive into it more, that'll become more clear, and I think you'll figure out who you can serve best and what's also most rewarding for you.
So very true. So very true. This is why I love that we have Amanda in our network. She was right there from the very beginning, helping us get launched, but she understands her audience so well. This is her audience from a personal perspective growing up. It's her audience now as a homeschooling parent. And I think that's how a lot of us had ended up in this field. We start with our pain points were our children. We started out with, that's how I ended up in nonprofit land. Was my pain point was my child, and I saw a need that was out there that no one else was filling or addressing, but a huge. So that became my niche. And niches can evolve a little bit over time, and as they should, because that's just business. That's just how they refine a little bit. They might change a little bit. They pivot like anything else because you're doing your needs assessment out there in the community, and then you're directly changing, not completely changing your business, but it's tweaking it just a little bit to what your customer needs. And at the end of the day, that's what this is. But yes, when you clarify over time from your transferable skills to your strengths and to what the community is seeking, you will begin to attract those clients. And then you will in turn market that out into the community. And then the right clients will find you. Absolutely. Well, here's a big pain point that we have talked about a little bit earlier in our chat, but as parents, homeschool parents, any parent too, when it comes to parents, we're going to be mama bears when it comes to our kids, but with homeschool parents, we're even a little bit more of a protective grizzly, if you will. When it comes to working with homeschool families, I've talked to several providers about the one key component of trust. You're not going to get very far with us as homeschool parents to work with us unless you can earn. So how would you say that you build trust with families who may be skeptical or who may just be overwhelmed and not know where to begin?
So I think that is really important for us to consider where their entry point is. Like they are skeptical of you because and I'll just say this from a homeschool mom perspective and from what I've heard from my own personal clients. I actually have a lot of trust already built in because I am a homeschool mom and a lot of the moms know I'm not a well, a lot of the moms, all the moms should know that I'm not a therapist. I'm very clear about that. But they trust me because they're like, oh, she's not going to report me because my kid's struggling with reading at age 11. And these are like, and this comes from moms, like their kids have dyslexia, like they're diagnosed. And I'm like, honey, like you have an official diagnosis of dyslexia. Like this is documented. Like you've been doing what you need to do along the way. Like there's no reason somebody would report you, but we have this fear based on previous history of the generations that came before us. I mean, there are homeschoolers, homeschool businesses now that their parents were imprisoned for homeschooling them, like legitimately. And so this isn't like, this was 100 years ago where you could get in trouble for homeschooling. No, like this is a generation ago. And so that is fresh in our mind. And then when you go out and in certain communities of educators, homeschooling is viewed very negatively. And this is usually due to somebody having negative opinions about parents being the authority. And I mean, oh my goodness, I intentionally like poke the bear a little bit sometimes on my Facebook. And some of the responses I get, I'm like, oh my gosh, you're the reason my kid is not in public school because you would not fly for me as a teacher. So I want to say like this trust thing is actually deeply important because like when I have this worry in the back of my brain, you could report me and my kids could be taken away. Like I had like this awful dream recently where one of my kids was taken from me. And I was like, I woke up and I was sobbing, right? And the reason in the dream was dumb. But the point is, it's a real fear we have. It's a real fear. So establishing that trust is so important for you to do and to understand the why, because that's the worry we really have in the back of our mind. And so being careful to be respectful, like what Kimberly is doing here at HCN and educating providers that are coming from a non-homeschooling background, like if you hear about unschooling and you're not like, you feel like, oh, that's not responsible as a parent, you probably don't want to work with unschoolers yet because we're going to smell you a mile away. So that's my 2 cents.
It's very insightful. And that's the reason we were founded. We're trying to help communicate that and help heal this rift that is there because there's an entire, huge, very diverse, as you pointed out earlier, population of homeschoolers. And within that diversity is a whole set of learning styles and methods and beliefs and needs to be served. You and I both come from the approach of collaboration over competition. There's always enough clients to go around. You just have to learn how to, and we're a huge community here in the homeschooling community. We're like one giant village. Even though we're diverse, we are here to fiercely defend one another when it comes to supporting a homeschool parent's right to home educate their child in the way they see fit. And if you can't agree with that or get on board with that, then this is probably not the community for you to serve. And so that is what we try to do at HCN is to train that and impart that knowledge to providers so that then they can come to the homeschooling community and serve us well. With your moving on to our next question for platforms and visibility strategies in your business, what have you found to be which platforms or visibility strategies have been the most impactful or helpful with you for marketing and client attraction?
Yes. So this is something I've actually recently been talking to another potential HCN provider. We were talking about how we were getting clients, and she is on the East Coast. I'm on the West Coast. And she was working in local homeschool Facebook groups. And as much as we do not enjoy social media collectively as homeschoolers, we also know it's necessary at this age and stage of homeschooling. And so really where it's at, especially if you're doing locally, like I can work with anybody in, the US and in Canada. Like I have a lot of freedom to attract clients from wherever. However, if you are trying to work with local folks, you got to be in homeschool Facebook groups. That is where it is at. And that would be the place where you're looking for homeschoolers to ask questions, and then you can come in, support, provide value, and say, I'm such and such. If you want to talk more about this, please reach out. Or you can then offer your lead magnet, right? Maybe your lead magnet speaks specifically to their pain point. Like, hey, this is, the next 3 steps for you. So that would be number one as far as visibility goes. Get into those local Facebook groups or those big national Facebook groups. And then secondly, thinking about platform, right? When we start thinking about lead magnets, well, I got to have a place for them to sign up and give me their do the exchange and then send them the free resource and then keep in contact with them via email. So there's a lot of follow up there, and there's a lot of different tech you can use. Now, if you are doing something that's, even if you're local, if you want something that is more meant for creators, maybe you hope one day to have a podcast. Maybe one day you hope to have a book. I really highly suggest kit.com, KIT.com, because they have really simple templates. They have great training videos. It's user friendly for newbies and people like me who have been doing this for a while. And they simplify the process for you. And it also looks very pretty. So as homeschoolers, we like things to look pretty. We care about aesthetic. And so it makes a difference, especially for mom, who is likely the one searching out for resources. So if you are looking to connect with local clients, those Facebook groups, they're going to meet, that's where you want to be. And if you're looking for delivery of those free resources and email and being in contact, I highly suggest Kit.
Thank you for giving those valuable resources and a free resource to boot, because you and I both know when you're starting out on a shoestring, and it's always nice to have any boots, affordable or free, to help get you started. You can just tell from the conversation that Amanda knows her stuff, and she's been doing this for quite some time. If you're not familiar with a lot of the terms that she mentioned there, from lead magnets or funnels, you can learn more about that in the HCN course, the Educator's Exit Plan. You can also reach out to Amanda, who helps coach families, and you help coach professionals who are also going into this as a consultant as well.
Well, I've had many homeschool moms do my programs. And then now that they finish my programs, now they have the energy and clarity and space in their schedule that they actually want to start a business. So my primary is working with homeschool moms who are trying to start a business. But if you are new to entrepreneurship, you're the same as a homeschool mom. And so the professional diction I am not familiar with. That is definitely Kimberly's wheelhouse. But as far as the back end marketing, lead magnet delivery, development of products, like your ascension ladder, all those, I love talking about those things. So yes, you can reach out to me.
And we might just have accidentally launched a different coaching program from Amanda with that she knows her stuff. She knows her stuff. I've learned a lot just from conversations with her. I'm like, just said this word. Let me go look that up and see what that means. So I learned a lot. Also, I pay a nonprofit coach to help me because my world is a little bit different. But she pointed out really a key component there that I want to highlight, which is she's a coach. And in this program, we are working to help launch consultants. The beauty of being a coach and a consultant is that you can work across state lines, you can work globally, provided what also Amanda pointed out that you stay in your lane regarding scope of practice. She makes it very clear that she is not a licensed therapist, she is not providing therapy services, she is providing professional coaching. And if you're a consultant, you are providing consulting services. We talk about that also in the Educator's Exit Plan, what those different services are, how you know what your scope of practice is, and to make sure that you are staying in your lane. Well, Amanda, thank you so much for coming in and sharing your knowledge and pouring back into this community. It's a shared community. We're both working and homeschooling moms. I want to give a real quick pitch for your book. It is on my list of the many books that I would like to read. I will admit wholeheartedly, I've not read it at the time of this recording quite yet, but I want to because I feel it from time to time. Even just when you think you have that rhythm of homeschooling down, your child gets older and enters that different stage of development, and you're relearning it all over again. And that's okay. That's just parenting. But here is Amanda's number one Amazon best-selling book, and we'll put a link to this in the show notes as well. It is Overwhelmed, a homeschool mom's rescue plan for peaceful routines. And I just love that. I can't wait to read it. I can't wait to read it. You can also find Amanda at her website at homeschoolfamilylegacy.com and at confidenthomeschoolmoms.com. We'll also put a link to her YouTube channel for at Confident Homeschool Moms and a link to her Facebook group so that if you are a mom wanting to launch your homeschool business, or if you're just a homeschool mom who's feeling overwhelmed and you need a little bit of extra support, we highly recommend Amanda. But Amanda, thank you so much for your time today. And thank you for being a part of the Homeschool Counseling Network.
It's an absolute pleasure, and I love everything that you're doing here, Kimberly, for the homeschooling community and to help providers come in and support the homeschool community. So thank you so much.